Check.
Louder.
Check. Check.
Say,
Check.
sir, can you hear us?
Sir, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
We start in 2 to 3. We start in 2 to 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. We'll start in 2 to 3 minutes. Today has been on the application of technology in the field of medicine and the building blocks of medical technology. Today's panel discussion deals with the topic that has recently made its way into the public domain. Artificial intelligence has become a buzzword today, with its supporters and detractors engaged in a heated debate about its applications, benefits, and risks. We are fortunate to have amongst us today some of the brightest minds who have devoted themselves to the application of artificial intelligence in the healthcare sector. Please put your hands together for our panelists. We are privileged to have with us Dr. Vishnu, founder of Busy AI, a company which focuses on AI-based solutions for early disease detection and personalized treatment plans. Dr. Vishnu's work in predictive analytics and machine learning has earned him accolades in both in the medical and tech communities. We are honored to have Dr. Shivateja Kakileti with us today. Dr. Shiva is the head of data science at Niramai, a groundbreaking company that has developed Thermalytics, a novel AI-based thermal imaging technology for early detection of breast cancer. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Shilka, founder and CEO of Viscan Diagnostics, a company renowned for its innovative diagnostic tools that leverage AI to improve the accuracy and efficiency of medical imaging. Joining us online today, all the way from the United States, we have Dr. Shyam Visweswaran, a leading expert in medical informatics and AI applications in healthcare. Dr. Visweswaran's research focuses on integrating AI with electronic health records and to improve patient outcomes and streamline clinical workflows. We are grateful to have with us Dr. Subhadra, additional professor of Department of Radio Diagnosis at JIPMER. Thank you for taking the time to be with us here, ma'am. And finally, please welcome our moderator for today's session, Dr. Subhadra Datta, a distinguished expert in medical technology and a leading voice in practical applications and ethical considerations of AI in healthcare. And he also happens to be an alumnus from JIPMER from the back of Phuket. Over to you, sir. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion. And I think it's a good crowd considering it's a post-lunch session. I welcome all my panelists from India as well as abroad. I think my colleague has done a good job of introducing all the panelists, but I would still want our panelists also to tell a little bit about themselves so that the people here who are mostly medical students can know a little bit more about what they have been doing and also what we are going to talk about today. Our panel will predominantly focus on giving you an idea of what is happening in India and across the world in AI in the diagnostic field. AI has become a buzzword quite rightly, and at one point of time, maybe 5 years, 10 years back, it was something which was nice to know. But right now, within 5 years, AI is going to drastically change the way we treat our patients, we diagnose patients, and the entire paradigm of healthcare experience which our patients have, as well as the way we deliver. We will try to give you a glimpse of the cutting edge work which is happening here in India and abroad. And I would want our panelists to give us a very brief introduction about themselves, about the kind of work they are doing. I'll start with Dr. Vishnuvardhan.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Vishnuvardhan. I'm founder and CEO of two companies. One of them is Visi, which is a US-based company. The other one is Hanuman. We have released our Hanuman modules in India. So last year, when ChatGPT came, there was a challenge that can India build foundational models, and it's our company which has done that. So my other parties, we work on health tech, mostly the multi-omics, and also using generative AI to understand multi-omics. That's what it does to create personalized treatment plans. So I explained when during the talk, like what we are trying to do there. But what I want to tell is, because I'm a doctor, I'm an orthopedic surgeon by training, and I also understand technology. I went to MIT in Boston. So it kind of brings a very good understanding of both sides of the world, right? So clinical side and also the technology side. That's what my expertise is in helping build these companies.
Thank you, Dr. Vishnu. Dr. Shiva, do you want to talk a little bit about the kind of work you're doing?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I'm Shiva. So my background is in clinical data science. I'm a founding team member and director for the Rama Health Analytics. So at Miramai, we developed an innovative technology to detect breast cancer. Because if you see the current scenario of breast cancer, specifically in LMI sales, we don't have any screening modality that is affordable and can reach the rural areas. So that's why if you see every alternate woman diagnosed with breast cancer is losing lives. And World Health Organization has recommended clinical risk examination as the gold standard for countries like India. So because of that, we're detecting cancers at late stages. So what we thought was, can we come up with a screening modality for detecting breast cancer in the early stages? Can it be of low cost? Can it be non-invasive and radiation-free? And there is no pain involved for breast screening because that's a primary user experience aspect. And one of the scenarios which we observed, specifically in Southeast Asian countries, is that women don't go for breast cancer screening because they have to undress in front of a technician, and in some scenarios, it could be a male technician. So we want to come up with a new technology which is completely privacy aware, where no one needs to see the undressed woman. It's completely automated with the help of artificial intelligence. It's radiation free, so you can do any number of times. So that's what we worked, and we have developed this test now, and it's been available in India and other countries as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva. Very exciting work. I welcome Dr. Shah, who has logged in from the United States to be with us. Sir, would you take a minute or two to introduce you?
Sure. So I'm Shyam Visveshwaran. I'm an alumnus of JIPMER. And so my background is I trained as a neurologist in Boston. And after that, I went into computer science and AI. I spent some time in MIT and then obtained a PhD in AI at the University of Pittsburgh. And since then, I've been at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Biomedical Informatics. And currently, most of my research involves doing AI-based clinical decision support, particularly in terms of deployment and ethical use of AI. So my focus now currently is mostly in trying to take some of this AI and show that it actually works in the clinical world. Even though there's a lot of promise, the amount of AI that is actually out there, which is deployed, is pretty small. And even among the AI that is deployed, it's not quite clear that they are helping us. So for example, the FDA in the United States has approved more than 500 AI-based health technologies. And it's not quite clear that they actually help with clinical care. So a lot of my focus is on research, but we're also deploying some of these AI technologies in the healthcare system that the University of Pittsburgh is associated with, which is UPMC, which is probably the largest academic health system in the US with about 40 plus hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We also have with us one of the faculty who is doing excellent work in the domain of AI, Dr. Subhadra Aditya.
Good afternoon. Many of you would already know me. The ones who are not from JIPMER, I'm Subhadra, I'm a radiologist by training. I saw that I was always interested in coding and computers. If I had not taken medicine, that would have been my option. And I did radiology because that had a scope for automation. And now with now that it is actually feasible to automate a large part of the radiology work, radiology reporting. So I took a little bit more interest in it. I did some collaborative research work with Harvard Medical School. So that is what I want to say. I'm interested in seeing how far this goes, and especially that we implement it responsibly and properly in a way that benefits everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. We also have with us Dr. Shilika Liraramani, who owns one of the largest diagnostic chains in the country, and they are using AI. So would you tell us what you are doing?
Hi, I'm Dr. Shilika. I'm a dentist by qualification. So I'm the CEO and founder of Rescan Diagnostics. We're one of India's largest chain of dental diagnostic centers. solving for primarily the lack of visibility into what dentists are actually, doing in terms of treatment planning and execution. So, in medical, if you see PACS, RIS, or having a diagnostic test before treatment, it's a norm. But in the dental industry, it's, I would say, at least 10 to 15 years behind. So we are trying to ensure that that works at par and dentists are diagnosing before treating their patient. Alongside that, we are also, for me, AI is not just a word. I'm more on the business side, and I'm more, like I studied dentistry, then I went to IIM Bangalore. And for me, it was a real life problem where I woke up one day and there were too many reports, too little radiologists, and all of them were burnt out. And that's where we kind of got into our journey of developing AI. I'm also the Chief Business Officer for a medical AI startup called Menacia AI, where we develop packs, do telereporting and AI solutions on the medical side. So that's my background, and looking forward to interacting with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So before I start the panel today, I'll give you a brief work on how we are planning to do this. There will be a couple of rounds, and I would really want you all to join us. Any questions you have, you can let us know. And after every round, you can ask anything which you have in mind regarding AI. What if you have done something, or if you have some question for a particular panelist, you can let us know. So let's start with it. So Dr. Vishnu, you have an extensive experience in multiomics. But when integrating AI into the routine workflow, often we face a lot of problems and challenges. So what are the major challenges which you have faced while trying to integrate AI into your clinical practice as well as day-to-day practice? And how have you successfully mitigated those? And what are the strategies which you have followed?
So before I answer this, I just want to go even more basic. Because multiomics is something which many people don't get it in the first shot, right? It's not like, yeah, using AI for interpreting radiology scans. That makes it easy. So what exactly are we trying to do in multiomics? I want to just explain so that it also comes with the answer that why we use AI here. So currently, most of the diagnosis which everyone does is based on the biomarkers and radiology and diagnostic reports. But what happens inside the cell is something which we are trying to look. Because if you see any diseases, everything is increasing. All the incidences of most of the diseases are increasing. Prevalence is increasing. So we started with the question, why is it happening? Can we find out how it works? So if you see the whole gamut of how the prevalence is increasing, it's based out of our lifestyle changes that have happened, and also the environmental exposure we are having, a lot of pollution, so many things happen, chemical exposure. And third is most important, the stress that happens. Modern life is stressful life. So is it changing anything inside itself? Is it changing at the level of gene? Is it resulting in epigenetic changes? This was the question we asked, and we went deep, and then we started analyzing the multiomics. Multiomics has many omics. One of them is the genomics. The other one is transcriptomics, where we study the RNA. On top of that, we also study the gut microbiome, because which is by itself a big life on its own inside our gut. And then we also look into proteomics and metabolomics. So when you are dealing with so much of data, which is nearly, if I do everything, it comes to about 200 GB of data. And then there are all different data sets, right? Like genomics, transcriptomics, all that is different data. So then we started working on using, can we understand this using the AI technology? Because you can't handle this much of data without So that's when we went into AI. Though we were a health tech company, we were mostly using computational biology techniques to do that. But we said if we have to do it on a scale, then we have to use AI. But the biggest challenge for AI is, it's in simple terms, AI is garbage in, garbage out. So whatever the data you are giving, it will try to input on that level. So that's what happens. So you have to give very good data sets, curated data sets. Currently, that's the biggest challenge. How do you get the data sets? If you look at any top medical school, does anyone do multiomics for any patient? No, right? So we had to create those data sets. That was the biggest challenge. Because models, machine learning models, all that are there. So that's solving a lot of problems. But in healthcare, the biggest challenge is number one, creating those data sets which are really useful for this problem, and then getting domain expertise also. If you give any data set to a machine learning expert, they will come up with something out of it. But is it relevant? Do you have? Does it even make sense? Because it can be just causation, right, without correlation. So that's where you need the domain expertise also. So you need two kinds of people who understand, who can do technology, but also the domain experts who understand the technology. So that's the biggest challenge when it comes to doing something cutting edge in healthcare using AI. So you need both the expertise. And that's where there is a challenge, but there is also a huge opportunity for people who are coming up, graduating now. So if you can understand how these models work, if you can understand bit of AI, it opens up a lot of avenues for people, not just clinical medicine, but huge opportunity in the health tech field itself. So coming back to your question, like how do you do that? Are you successful? So virtually, we had to create our own data sets. So now I have my own multiomics lab in India. We have like in fact 2 labs. So where we are creating those data sets and then using generative AI to understand them and then make them easy. Earlier, like say even 2 years back for me, it used to take 3-4 weeks for understanding one data set. Now it happens in few hours. So that's how AI really helps, because you can do it at a scale and also do it quick, and also you handle large data sets. Especially generative AI has been a big game changer for the work we are trying to do, because computational methods and all the predictive things has really come out very easily. Without that, with this machine learning models, we were really struggling like 3-4 years back. Now things have improved a lot with generative AI techniques we are using, especially the transformers technology. So this transformer technology is exactly what gave us the opportunity to build foundational model for India using Indian languages. So that's how it helped us create those Hanuman models, which today can talk in 19 languages. Out of them, 12 languages are Indian languages. So virtually we work in all the languages we speak, not just English. So this was something which had tried to use for multiomics, and it gave us huge expertise in that field, enabling us to create foundation models for India. So yeah, this is the short and long answer of your question.
Thank you, sir. My next question would be to Dr. Sivateja. So you mentioned about the AI-based, non-invasive-based cancer detection technique which you're developing. Can you share your insights into the current adoption rates of your technology, and what is the kind of problems which you face while trying to get your product out the market? So the current adoption rate, the technology is now available in close to 200 locations all over India. And last year we started expanding into other countries. So now we are in 8 countries. So specifically we're targeting LMICs because in those locations there is no alternate imaging modality, and also Middle East countries, because Middle East countries
even though mammography screening is free, they don't do mammography screening because of privacy reasons. So there is no alternate test. So that's why we're seeing a lot of adoption. And regarding impact wise, we have done close to 200,000 women screenings. And to measure whether it's really impacting, right? What we have done was we collaborated with Punjab government and we implemented this technology throughout the state for 1.5 years with only 2 devices and 2 technicians. So these technicians went to different locations and covered all these 23 districts in 1.5 year, and we screened 15,000 women. So on an average of 1,000 women per month. So that's a big number when we're talking about radiological imaging screenings. So at the end of it, what the technology has done is out of these 15,000 odd women, it triaged some women as those that required for follow-up, and we asked them to go for further tests. And as of today, 27 cancers we have found. And when we compare these numbers with other clinical studies that exist in India, specifically with clinical risk examination, because that's a gold standard, some studies reported close to 27 cancers, 30 cancers on 50,000 women. So we saw a clear 3x to 4x cancer detection rate, improvement when compared to the hand examination. So that shows the potential of this technology and how it can impact. Because without doing this screening, I think we wouldn't have found these cancers because they don't usually go for. Because what we have done is not in a rural set, in a urban settings where the technology, mammography and other things are there. We did these screenings mostly in rural areas. So there, women don't go unless they find the lump, once it's fully grown, right? So that way, we helped in identifying these cases in their early stages, and it's also for the government. Instead of sending 15,000 women to a hospital, now all they had to send was, I think, close to 450 women to a further follow-up. So I think that's what it's impacting when we see in the technology in the field setting.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think it's a great public health initiative, and let's see where this can help us detect more cancers in our women. Coming to Dr. Shyam Visheshwaran. Sir, your work predominantly focuses on AI-based clinical decision support, EHR integration. Can you tell us a little bit more about the most impactful AI-driven tools which you have developed in the US, and what are their real-world implications in the clinical setup?
Sure. So I'll give you sort of 2 examples. One comes from the monitoring space. So humans are pretty poor with monitoring. For example, like if you're in the operating room and you're monitoring all kinds of vitals, usually the human brain sort of gets bored after a while. So we have a project which is now for which we're trying to get FDA approval. This is in the arena of intraoperative neuromonitoring. So for certain high-risk surgeries where you worry about blood flow to the brain being compromised, like in, say, carotid endarterectomy or open heart surgery and some neurosurgery, there's continuous EEG monitoring done in the operating room. And often there is a person who is watching this 8-lead EEG on the screen and trying to determine whether there's any ischemia in the brain. And we know that this is a pretty error-prone process. And when the surgeries are long, 3-4 hours long, it's pretty tiring too. So basically, we're just doing machine learning, which can detect ischemia and then provide a warning to the person who is doing this monitoring. And it seems to work pretty well. So at this point, we are trying to get it certified so that you can actually put it to clinical use. So that's sort of one example where you're augmenting human skills, especially in the areas that human brains are not really good at. The second area is a little bit different. The idea here is to use vast amounts of electronic health record data to help with clinical decision making. So in terms of what clinicians do in making decisions, the evidence base behind this is often pretty small. So only about 20% of decisions that clinicians make is supported by gold standard evidence like randomized controlled trials. And the rest of it is really based on the experience of the physician. And often, if you're stuck with a complex case and you're not quite sure what to do, you basically go to the senior-most consultant in your institution and ask them whether they had seen a similar case like this and what did they do. So you're basically looking at experience of clinicians. So the idea is, can you scale this up? Where instead of depending on one clinician, can you bring in the knowledge and experience of hundreds or thousands of clinicians to help with providing some evidence for decision making? So in the US, we have a NIH-funded project which allows us to query electronic health record data across about 55 academic medical centers. This has got, I think it accesses about 140 million patients, EHRs in the country, which is about somewhere around 40% of the country's population. So now we can use this data to answer questions which come up clinically. So for example, one of the questions which came up recently was, if you have a calf muscle injury and you have a long haul flight to take, are you at increased risk of deep vein thrombosis? And what should you do? Now, if you look up the literature, there's not much on this. There's hardly anything on this. So we have used this network of EHR data to look at it in a very simple way. We just looked at people who had calf muscle injury and what proportion of them developed deep vein thrombosis in the next few months. And it substantially increased compared to someone who doesn't have a calf muscle injury. And this was sufficient information for the clinician to make a decision in terms of advising the patient that either you take some form of anticoagulation before you go on the flight or just don't take the flight. Another example of this was, so early on in COVID, there's this question about whether hydroxychloroquine is useful to prevent COVID or to treat COVID. And eventually we had studies which showed that it doesn't really, it's not that useful. But in the network, we took advantage of the fact that hydroxychloroquine is commonly used in rheumatoid arthritis. And so when we looked at rheumatoid arthritis patients and compared those who are getting chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine on a long-term chronic basis versus who weren't getting, and looked at whether they developed COVID in the year 2020, you could see that there was no difference between these two populations. So basically using electronic health record data, you can drive to some extent decision-making where you can get evidence in a sort of a quick and dirty fashion. And this can be pretty useful. And right now we do it using simple statistical methods, but you can imagine eventually AI, where you just ask the AI the question that you care about, it comes up with the appropriate statistical methods, gets the appropriate data from the network, and then produces this sort of evidence. So these are sort of two, I think, examples. One is sort of classical decision support using machine learning. The other one is decision support, which is just leveraging large amounts of electronic health record data. Thank you.
Thank you. So we heard from Dr. Vishnu, Dr. Shiva, and Dr. Sham about how they have been using AI in their uh, work in the industry as well as in academia. Coming to Dr. Subhadra, so it is very obvious that AI is coming in, and it is coming in at a very fast pace, at a very large scale. It's everywhere now. In this evolving landscape of AI, as you know, there are generalist models, there are specialist models. So what are the roles that will be played by them? And if you can also tell our audience a bit about how they are different, what is the currently existing thing, and how generalist models are gradually coming up, so that they get an idea about the future of AI in healthcare.
So AI as specialist models have been there for a long time. I think computer-aided detection of breast masses in mammogram. It's been there for around 15 years. We have it in our department also. But how useful it doesn't, that is a different question. Specialist models are those which are tailored for specific tasks. For example, for counting nodules in the lung, or for picking up masses in the breast, or for telling whether a lesion in the kidney is malignant or non-malignant. Now, what people have done is, instead of training models on one particular data set, they have trained it on multiple data sets. Because of this exposure to diverse data sets, these models, they are called generalist models, they can perform multiple tasks. A very good example is GPT. It can perform question answering. Based on the prompts it generates by itself, it can generate images using DALL-E. It can help you with coding. It can help you with your homework. It can give you answers to medical questions. So GPT is a generalist model. Whereas the models which are trained only for counting how many lung nodules are there in chest CT, or for measuring one particular aspect of, say, for measuring masses in chest X-ray, or for detecting the position of tubes in the X-ray. Those would be called as specialist models. To give a very simple example, suppose I tell you that you have 100 pages to read and you get 5 minutes to read that. Now you have an option of skimming through the 100 pages and becoming generally competent with those 100 pages, or taking one page and becoming a specialist in that one page. With development in technology, it is now possible for the brain to be so good that even in those 5 minutes, you could become quite competent in those 100 pages. So as technology evolves, as they figure out better architectures to train models, as they come up with better strategies to train models, it is possible to achieve high levels of accuracy even with generalist models. However, the trade-off between generalist and specialist models is that specialist models are generally expected to be very highly accurate in the tasks that they are specialists at. Generalist models are expected to perform a lot of tasks, and they may not reach the accuracy of specialist models. If they do reach the accuracy of specialist models, then that is something which is published and that is highly commendable. There's one more thing called foundation models. The difference between generalist and foundation models are, if these generalist models could be used for further downstream tasks. So GPT is able to do a lot of things. Using the language abilities of GPT, if I am able to develop another special model or another general model, then GPT becomes a foundation model for this. So foundation models are generalist models from which other models are developed.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Shilika, we heard about how AI is being introduced in healthcare. From your experience in dentistry, can you share with us how AI is being used in dentistry and its potential impact on the dental industry as well as the public health landscape of the country?
So firstly, I'm really enjoying the sleeping faces.
We can do something.
The sleeping faces. Can you guys wake up?
No, can you get up?
Yeah. There's
Just for one
there are
minute. Just
50
get up,
of
get up.
you.
Yeah.
You need at least 30, 40 to listen. Get up. Wow. The sixth row. He's in the deepest sleep that I've ever seen.
Thank you so much. You can sit down now. I think this should be helpful for.
I'm kidding, okay. So look, we've also been there in college, sleepy after lunch, but I think some of the things we've spoken here, you may not realize today the impact that they're gonna have in your lives. So as doctors, right, we study and then the dependency is only on what we know and maybe our seniors, as Sir very rightly said. But when technology comes into the picture, you either become obsolete or you can become the best based on how much you adapt to that technology. It's never going to replace a doctor, right? So those of you who are in that space in your mind, like what are they talking about AI? Push it out. It's here just to help you. In context to my question for dental AI, how many of you have been to a dentist? Can I see a show of hands? Oh wow, quite a lot of you're eating a lot of chocolates here at Jipmar or in childhood. Okay, so were you 100% sure that you could trust your dentist and the treatment they said? If yes, put your hands up. Right, so the number of people who raised their hands versus the first question versus now dropped almost 70%. That's where AI comes into the dental space. It's a highly unregulated field. We don't know what a dentist is doing. So the main difference in the medical industry and the dental industry is lots of doctors are aggregated under either an institute or a company, and you have a lot of peer support. But in the dental industry, most of the dentists operate as independent small clinics or independent entrepreneurs, and there is no one really monitoring or managing what they're doing. So when a patient comes, the patient also has 100 doubts, like how do I trust my dentist? So the first way is using AI. It acts as a second opinion to the dentist. When you take an X-ray as a patient, you have a system which is giving you an objective feedback. So there's like a thought in many patients' minds, even you may have experienced, as patients come or to your college or hospital, that they ask so many questions. Today, the Google patients are like, with people getting smarter and more access to internet, they have a million questions, right, to ask. So these kind of solutions in the dental industry at least help put a full stop to some of those questions and back up the dentist. The same way, in the medical industry, if a patient is doubting you or in medical legal, maybe this acts as some form of a second opinion to back you up. So that's definitely one of the use cases. When it comes to dentistry at scale, right? So if you see tier 2, tier 3, many people have never visited a dentist. In India, around only 10 crore people annually, that's less than 10% actually visit a dentist, and only 2 to 3 crore people undergo dental treatment because it's more of like a pain driven thing, and it's not like a life threatening thing in most cases. But as your oral health deteriorates, right, it has a major impact on your systemic health. If you talk about chronic disease, like metabolic disease or diabetes, hypertension, even if you talk about Alzheimer's, there are studies linking your oral health to the progression of these diseases and even metastasis of cancer, right? So we see that dentistry can plug in very well with the healthcare system if there is a synergy between both, and it also acts like a point of contact to a patient. If a patient starts visiting a dentist, they are more likely to visit a dentist 2 to 3 times a year as compared to their general physician or to a hospital. And that becomes a point of where we can pick up systemic diseases or where we can pick up on certain indications. At the broader landscape in the rural parts of India or places where people are not exposed to why dentistry is important, general screening using AI, just a photograph to diagnose whether there may be a problem or not of your teeth. So there are certain robots now, or devices basically where you can smile, even mobile apps. You can just smile, show your teeth, and get a preliminary diagnosis that, look, you need to visit a dentist or not. So I believe that's where awareness is coming. into the public. And also, I think as your oral health gets better, as I said, it impacts your systemic health. If you don't have teeth and you cannot chew your food, as doctors or to be doctors, you all understand how it impacts nutrition, it impacts your mental health, it impacts your facial structure, a lot of things. So that's where AI is kind of important in our industry, the dental industry, and how it will come together with the medical industry to improve the way we are delivering healthcare in the country.
Thank you, Dr. Shalika. So I think from what we heard from all these experts who have been developing AI algorithms and are implementing this in their own practice, is that I don't know if AI is being taught in the medical curriculum yet. So how many of you are from Maharashtra? Here, anyone? Okay, so I think Maharashtra was the first state to start a AI curriculum. And I was in fact speaking with one of your people from medical council yesterday, and they were planning to make it compulsory to have a little bit of expertise in AI for all MBBS students, because it is no longer a nice to know thing, but it's a must know thing for all. Taking from what our experts have told is that gradually we are moving from detection of diseases towards wellness. And once we look at wellness, it's about people at a very large scale. And when we are talking about scale, to reach out to a huge population of people in a country like India, it's not possible for doctors to reach out. So that is where technology comes in, and that is where AI helps us in reaching out to a lot more people for detection of cancers earlier, for our own mental well-being, for our own physical well-being, detecting the diseases before they occur. And this is going to come in a huge way. Very soon, ABDM is going to start. Now it's not a compulsion, but in a year or two, ABDM is going to become compulsory, wherein every single visit to any doctor in the country has to be documented and registered. And with so much amount of data coming into the government, AI is going to play a very big role in helping us achieving much better health for our country. As rightly said by Dr. Vishnu, we need good curated data sets for creating good AI algorithms as well as domain experts. And that is where your role comes in. I in fact was in the audience maybe 8 or 9 years before when I was a student at JIPMER. And we used to listen to all these biodesign experts and AI experts. AI came in very recently in the medical field, so commonly. When I was a student, it was not so common. But right now, each one of you who have come for this session, I think you obviously have some interest in knowing about what AI is and how you can be a part of it. So for you, I think it's a very good time to delve into the basics and fundamentals of AI, learning a little bit more about how you can use AI in your area of interest. Because every specific field, every specific subject is going to gradually use AI for their specific tasks. And gradually, as Dr. Subhadra has very rightly mentioned, we are going to move from specific tasks to very generalized tasks in the next decade, where we are going to be so much dependent on AI because the evidence generated in textbooks, in literature, will be so vast that it will not be possible for a physician to go to the entire set of evidence to provide the best possible care for our patients. Is there any question from the audience for our panelists before we go on to the next round? Can you mic? Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, panelists. I'm Dr. Deepika Somani, third year pharmacology postgraduate. So I'm an AI enthusiast. I've been working towards like the computer-aided drug designing along with disease modeling and target prediction. So my question to all of you is, one thing, how do I approach, like, if I have to get into the AI world, how do I approach with respect to, like, given the fact that, yeah, we have a lot of data, but again, we don't have new molecules coming in for the diseases. And so how do I go ahead with respect to, it could be about disease modeling or making new molecules coming in into the market. Second, how can I collaborate with you guys? Like, how can I work with you guys or how can I collaborate with you guys? Thank you.
Yeah, great to see someone interested in drug design. That's a big field now for AI. So AlphaFold is come which can predict the protein structures itself. So we can really less than the time it takes to do the discovery. And yes, there are many companies which are working on that aspect, especially in Bangalore. They work for other companies, pharma companies, as the back-end offices doing the work, or there are many companies who are doing their own. So, and all of those companies would need experts like you, who are number one, your domain expertise, and secondly, interested in technology. So that makes it a great combination. So for starters, you can just write to us at viz@hy.com, right? So hr@viz.hy.com. We surely want to work with any domain expert who is interested in technology and AI. So I keep looking for people like that. So I hope this answers your question. Yeah.
Anybody else wants to mention?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Anand, Senior Medical Officer from Sigma. So, I think ChatGPT came around 1.5 years before. Before that, like for example, in my clinical experience, I was running a dialysis center with 100 patients running 1,000 sessions per month. We used to do a lot of Excel sheets. And to make a simple Excel sheet with 100 patients, one single sheet, and then you create 100 sheets for a patient. I have been toiling very hard, burning night oil. It was very hard. But right now, it's very easy to put in the data to get a VBA code. Like for example, you write a VBA code, right? It will from C1 to C100, what are the names, the sheets are being created. So it's very mind-boggling to see how much AI is being integrated. We're using it daily. Right now, I don't think we are writing letters, everything is put in ChatGPT. So we have different models right now. Are there any free models which can be used in daily practical life in medical field who are doing this academic clinical research and any administrative duties currently?
So is your question specific to the medical field?
Yes, it's definitely specific to the medical field. For example, like we have a data set. For example, in analysis, we had 100 patients. We had to put anemia, HB values, May, June, July for 12 months. You have to maintain the HB 9 to 10. You have to look at the single data, sit in a single room, then keep planning the management. I think with the current set, like if you put the Excel sheet into that, we are going to get data for all the patient management is going to be easy. Whether like you need to do ferritin level, T-set level, and manage anemia, or we can just do the same level of ESA like agents which are helpful in improving the HB level. Like sort of. What I'm trying to say is, it has grown so much. So, for example, as a person, medical field expert or medical field person, if I'm going to put a data set, are there any free available models specific where we can use it in a day-to-day life currently? So that it is practical. For example, in X-ray, X-ray patient is coming with the X-ray. You want to look for TB. So anything like we can keep the X-ray and get any opinions or something.
Yes. So have anyone here used Hugging Face for any purpose? Okay, so Hugging Face is essentially a platform wherein a lot of universities, a lot of groups from all across the world, they put their model on the platform wherein you can put your data as an input and they will run the model on their platform and you'll get the output. So there is a chest X-ray model as well, On Hugging Face, you can just go and search on Google, you'll get that, which is a decent job. But essentially, if you are trying to look for very highly specialized models, a lot of those models are in the open source domain currently. And few of the models, you will be finding papers on them in Nature, NEJM, and Archive, the latest ones. You can write to the authors for giving you access to their models. After which, if you have a data science team or if you can write a little bit of code yourself, you actually can use that on your own data sets to see how the model performs and also use it for your own day-to-day purpose. The easiest way right now for anyone to do it is to go to Hugging Face and try out the models in biology domain which are available. But if you want better tasks to be done, you will have to do a little bit of more efforts, and you need to have a data science team who can run the models which are available on GitHub from the papers which are coming out and use it fine-tune for your own specific tasks. I think Dr. Subhadra here can tell us more about her experience with utilizing open source models for our day-to-day tasks.
I would not call day-to-day tasks, but research interests, yes, definitely. Nowadays, it is expected that when people publish papers, they publish their code and their data set as well. And archive is a source where people don't, in the machine learning side, people don't wait for the journal to send it to the peer review and then after 1 year publish it. So if you finish your work now and it's fairly recent, they put it in archive. So if you're interested, you could follow whichever specific, so if you're interested in chest X-ray, you could look for chest X-ray models, try open source models, download them. There will be a short learning curve. There are plenty of courses in Coursera, so many other places. If you're interested in learning, it is definitely feasible to learn. You just have to start with learning the basics of Python. After you know Python, then you could incrementally build up your skill level. Then you can download the code which is available with the published papers and you can try running it yourself. But this is not for day-to-day work. This is for research work. Day-to-day, it requires that it is validated, it is approved for use, it is approved for clinical use. You could make mistakes when you're doing research, but in clinical application at the patient level, you should not make mistakes.
Right. Anyone else wants to comment? Dr. Sham, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I think people are starting to use for clinical purposes these large language models like ChatGPT, both from the patient side as well as from the physician side. So it's not uncommon anymore that if you're visiting a physician, they might actually be querying ChatGPT in front of you sometimes. And this is becoming quite common in the US. We'll probably see more of that because these large language models are sort of a decent second opinion, as long as you're an expert. So if you know enough about the field, then you can look at the output that, say, ChatGPT produces and verify that it's actually good enough. The problem with the current technology is that they hallucinate, and you don't know which pieces of the output are wrong. So unless you're an expert, it can be quite dangerous to take the output of these models for clinical purposes. But as long as you're an expert, it serves as a nice memory aid. It sort of gives you information which you might have forgotten to consider, or differential diagnosis that you might have forgotten to consider. And there are actually real world examples now, which comes from the fact that for say misdiagnosis and complicated diagnosis, one of the problems we have is, number one, the number of physicians involved can be quite large. And two, the data could be sort of fragmented. The patient data could be fragmented. Each physician is a specialist just looking at their part of the data, and they don't put the full picture together. And so they miss the diagnosis, and this goes on and on and on for months on end. And you can take all the data related to that patient and stick it into ChatGPT, and it does a reasonably good job of coming up with a diagnosis which has been missed. And it just turns out it's because a single physician probably hasn't looked through the entire complex medical record of this patient and put everything together. So that's a problem of data overload, right? So our cognitive capacities are limited. And if you have a lot of data for a particular patient, unless you have a lot of time on your hands and you go through everything carefully and put it all together, you often take shortcuts. You just go by what you think might be going on. And so in these complicated cases, again, ChatGPT is quite useful.
Right. I 100% agree with sir in that a lot of our colleagues, even at AIMS, still I am a senior resident there, we use ChatGPT on a very regular basis for helping us write our reports. And even sometimes when we see a very complicated case that has come to us, instead of asking the patient to come back the next morning after we read up and report the case, we often take help of ChatGPT for helping us interpret the scans and write the reports, because they essentially have a lot of the knowledge which we get from our textbooks embedded in them. And if we know how to ask the right questions and the right way of prompting to any large language model for a fact, it does a very decent job at helping us and guiding us towards completing the task. Having said so, there's a huge component of bias, which is the reason why it is not so frequently used by everyone, is because obviously, as sir said, it hallucinates, and it hallucinates very confidently that you will not be able to pick up that it's wrong unless you are an expert yourself. So over reliance on ChatGPT is not great. However, so this I will tell you a repository for the people who are interested in trying things out. Like our colleague here was asking. So there is this repository on GitHub, which is maintained and updated every week to share with everyone the foundational models, specifically in healthcare. It's called Awesome Healthcare Foundational Models. And you can just search that on Google. And if you type GitHub and Awesome Healthcare Foundational Models, it will link you to the page wherein they update regularly based on what is the latest foundational model for a particular task, which is available right now as an open source. So if you can run the code, you can do it yourself and try out to see which works for your task the best. So I think we can, look, we will have one more round and then we'll come back to the audience. Okay, so going back to Dr. Vishnu. So Busy has been in the forefront of technological development. We have seen Busy and Anuman in the news recently for building India's first multimodal foundational model. So can you elaborate on the latest developments your company has made and how are you planning to use that to transform diagnostics at a large level?
When it comes to diagnostics, one important thing which will address the previous question also. So if you look at the work of the doctor, so at least 50 to 60% of it is more of clerical thing, right? Like it's not care, but clerical thing like writing a report, especially radiology side. Yesterday, I was in a flight, so next to me was a radiologist who was writing his reports. And I was reading an article, he was writing his reports. Both are like not care, so there you go. And for me, now life has become very easy. I used to read this many articles, now I can read 10x more because all I have to do is take them, put them into my model, which is Hanuman, because I use that. It will summarize it. If I like what it is inside, then I go deeper, else forget about it. I just copy and then use that. So these are things which any model can do, right? But there are like 40-50% which is very specific. You need models which are super good. So as ma'am was saying, general model, specialist model. So what has happened? Why ChatGPT will never do that job? So I'm coming to your question also, like what exactly is trying to do. So ChatGPT will never do that job because it will become bigger and bigger, see a lot of things. When you see a lot of things, you generalize, you find a pattern anyway. So you're not very specific. So the accuracy of the larger models will be around 70 to 80%. They will not go any far behind that in specific use cases. Like if I have to diagnose a long nodule using GPT 4.0, its accuracy will not go that high. Sometimes it can even drop with the newer model. So ChatGPT 4.0 came, lung X-ray accuracy even came down. So that's the reason we need these specialist models which do this work very well, because they're trained only on those data sets. If you ask a model which is built for interpreting lung X-rays, something else, it won't answer because it's only specifically built. And it's also not very large model, because if you have to use a very large model, it's very expensive to build, number one, and very expensive to run also. So a person can't run that. So what Visi is doing is that. So what we are building specific models for many use cases. One is the diagnosis, especially the digital pathology side, and then the radiology side, and most importantly, the common work is done by doctors, interpretation of the biomarkers and all that stuff, so which is very accurate. So they are very small models. So we are working at this system where you can deploy those models. That's what we call as edge computing. You don't need a GPU, so you can put them on your laptop or work. So we are working with Dell on that, where we want to enable every hospital to use these models where you don't need GPUs, because GPUs are very expensive and you don't get them everywhere. So you can run your models on your own hospital services. Gmail has a server, they can run these models there. And then importantly, you can keep training them with your own data sets, because you are running those models and you can. So that's something cutting edge which we are doing. And to be Microsoft is working with us on that. So we'll be available on Azure platform itself from September. And for a specific use case like you said, so he was asking you to learn some Python. We have come up with something called an agent-based system where you don't need to learn Python. So you can deploy these agents. You can even train them to do what you want to do, and they will keep doing that work. Already, ChatGPT has those agent things, but they're not very accurate. I have 3 agents, all of them do the same work, though I created for different workflows, one for research, other one for something else, but they're mostly same. But we are doing that. So in September, we'll release these models where you can create your own agents, and then you don't need to rally. So you can deploy a model, create these agents, and then keep training them, working with them, write your reports. So that's like, we are very focused in healthcare. So we have gone deep into that, and we will be available on all the platforms, Microsoft and Google and Amazon platforms. Because all 3 of them are very interested in the work we are doing. And this is one of the specific reasons I keep coming to places like Zipmer or Range whenever they call me, because for this kind of work, we need people who are interested in technology from doctors. Because I have a lot of people who are like machine learning experts and all, but getting someone who is interested in this is something, difficult, because in a medical school, engineering is never taught, so you never have any interest or even expertise there until unless you are self-motivated and you want to learn that. So that's where I think this is what Maharashtra Health Sciences is doing is something very, very important, because when you are exposed, when you study it as a subject, you will know like what you can do there. Otherwise, it's all self-learning. Right? Yeah.
Thank you. I thought this was going to come maybe 2 years down the line, but it's good to know it's coming in September, that all of us can use whatever is available as open source and maybe help us go back to our home summer clinic a little bit earlier. Okay, so coming to Dr. Seva, we heard about the development of general models, specialist models. From my experience, a major amount of hurdle which we face is during the implementation. So what are the primary obstacles which you have faced while trying to implement and integrate your product? As well as how have you addressed these challenges? And what would your suggestion be to someone who is trying to develop an AI algorithm and trying to get it to the clinical practice? Interesting question. So I think when we started back in 2017, that time AI is not well accepted. And for a medtech startup, I think the primary challenge is how do we convince doctors actually to use technology, because there's always skepticism whether it works or not. And I've also said whether we have been using computer-aided technology since long, but are we really using it efficiently, right? At that point of time, it's used as it is there kind of thing, but it's not really used in the clinical diagnosis stage. So one of the primary challenges for us is to convince doctors that AI is here not to replace you, but to increase your efficiency. And also, as I think one of the speakers pointed out, that when you look at an image, right, there might be like the lung X-ray you're looking, there might be multiple abnormalities. When you're catching some 2, 3 abnormalities, the human tendency is to miss, even though there's a fourth one, we might miss that. So AI could help that. So that problem, I think we have seen now, most of the doctors are now interested in learning artificial intelligence, and I think the audience all here also, testimony to that. So that's one of the challenges when we started, but we have seen, I think the whole world is moving because of the clinical evidence that's already published showing the effectiveness of AI in radiology as well as in other medical domains. And specifically for our startup, the second problem which we face is we wanted to bring this non-standard imaging modality into an primary modality. So, which means there is no standardization of the imaging, and doctors don't know what this imaging modality is. So, there's a lot of education. We have to tell them that, it's non-invasive, radiation-free. But then the question comes like, what are the clinical evidence? But as a startup, it's very hard if you want to validate these solutions in a real setting. And this I'm talking back in 2017, where the acceptance of AI itself is questionable. So for us, we had to collect the data sets. We had to come up with the ways to standardize the imaging. And the other challenge was, as Dr. Vishnu mentioned, garbage in is garbage out. We are using a non-standard imaging modality, which is questioned by doctors. Now, how do you get the ground truth for it? Because if ground truth is not proper, whatever model is generating, it's not reliable. So then we had to come up with a ways, like instead of utilizing the doctor's labels, we started, taking the ground truth that's coming from the standard of care. That is, for every image we collect, we don't consider the doctor diagnosis here, but we consider mammography, ultrasound, and biopsy. So that, increased the ground truthness of the model. And once we have the correct ground truth veracity of the data, so we started, again, the question there is back in 2017, right? We have two options, whether to go for black box modeling versus whether to go for explainable or interpretable AI, traditional machine learning approaches. So since it's a non-standard modality, the moment you go with black box modeling, again, raises a lot of skepticism because doctor can't understand what we are generating. So we had to come up with innovative ways of leveraging the latest technology. At the same time, don't lose the don't lose the explainability of the predictions.
So we combine this whenever we saw an opportunity of data-driven modelings. We used the latest deep learning artificial intelligence algorithm, and in terms of diagnosing, where it requires doctors to understand why the model is saying it is cancerous or not, we had come up with radiomic features, which help the radiologist in understanding the diagnosis. But ultimately, to both the problems, the only answer for us is publish or do as many clinical studies as possible to show the effectiveness of this algorithm, right? What is its clinical efficacy? And can it detect deep tumors? Can it detect small tumors? What is the smallest tumor which we can detect? These are the questions which we get, and all of this can be answered when you do clinical studies. So that was the main approach for us. So we started back, and we have now close to 50 publications that showcases our effectiveness of the both technical algorithms as well as the clinical algorithms, and also the regulatory clearances, which again will be a hurdle for startups, but having the proper regulatory clearances is also essential in order to survive in this.
Right. I think this is a good perspective from the startup and industry side, the problems which you face while implementing your solution. I would like to ask Dr. Subhadra here, because as a person of, as a faculty here working in data science, what do you see are the main challenges from your side for the implementation of any algorithm in the regular practice? And how do you overcome these challenges in an institute setup, an academic setup?
So in an academic setup, one thing is, okay, there are multiple issues. So for one, data, we could use the data which is present in our own institute, but still for training for convolutional neural networks, we require huge data. We need to take data from multiple institutes, and the protocols for sharing data, they are not very clear. We don't have, if we know that these are the rules, we can adhere to the rules and do it, and we know that we are safe. When the rules are not very clear, then everybody is afraid. Are we doing something wrong by sharing data? So because we are afraid to share data, afraid to consolidate data, availability of data is one issue. So there is recently a DPDP Act which is put forward by in 2023 by the Parliament that deals mostly with removal of personal identification. So now only they have started making the laws for removing personal identification. Then comes the issue of after removing personal identification, how do you safely share anonymous data? In the US, it's for a long time, they have been putting their data in a safe manner after removing all personal identification as public data sets. So there is this mimic chest X-ray data set, this expert data set. They are widely used in multiple places. We, without having our laws, we don't know whether we could share our data sets. We have so much of data. If we consolidate across multiple places in the country, we would have more data, but we don't know whether we are doing the right thing, we are breaking any law, we are doing something wrong to someone. That is this being said, there are some efforts by the ICMR. In February 2024, the ICMR had asked for proposals to set up thematic hubs, so we could see how far it goes. And then there are other issues with respect to availability of people to work together. Maybe we could think about it.
Right, right. I think ICMR has done a great job in the last 1 year to put impetus on at least the AI and machine learning part in India. A lot of things are in progress, and I think just last month ICMR published India's first chest X-ray dataset also, which is available to anyone who has an institutional ID to work on that. So that's available right now. Coming to Dr. Sham, we are gradually moving towards a future where we would want to give our patients the best treatment possible. We are moving towards precision medicine and personalized medicine. So, how do you think AI and machine learning can help us actually address the complexities involved in personalized medicine?
Yeah. So now as we move towards precision medicine, one of the challenges that we have to grapple with is our clinical pathological classification of disease is insufficient. So for example, if you look at a diagnosis like sepsis, it's such a broad diagnosis that we have made no advances in coming up with new therapies for sepsis because it's just basically a garbage term. The only way you can make advance in these kind of diagnoses is to come up with precision phenotyping. So one of the projects that came out of the University of Pittsburgh, and it's a JAMA paper, which is very well cited, is we took a lot of the electronic health record data for sepsis patients, as well as some of the commonly used biomarker data, and essentially did clustering to see whether there are subphenotypes from the machine learning perspective. And it came up with a bunch of subphenotypes where some of them make clinical sense. So there are some sepsis patients where the kidney is primarily involved, and the machine learning pulled that up. And then there were other clusters which really the clinicians were not aware of that it came up with. But what was most interesting is they took these clusters and reanalyzed a lot of the clinical trial data for new therapies, which had been done over the past couple of decades. And all of them had failed in terms of the therapy which was being tested. What they found was that for some subphenotypes, that particular therapy would have actually succeeded when the reanalysis was done. And so now, whenever new therapies are being tried out in sepsis, it's pretty common to see people take these 5 or 6 subphenotypes and do analysis across those subphenotypes and then show that maybe the therapy doesn't work across the entire set of sepsis patients, but it'll work for a particular subphenotype. So I think there are a lot of diseases of that nature where the label that we have is just too broad and is pretty much useless to try and find a therapy for, say, all people with Alzheimer's or all people with hypertension. And we have to get more precise in what the phenotypes are. A complementary side is, of course, precision genotyping. For most part, I think we have pretty much discovered diseases which are driven by a single, say, variant or a single mutation. So these are the Mendelian sort of diseases. But what we need is more sophisticated ways of looking at genotypes. So for example, in cancer, tumors typically have a whole variety of mutations is there in a tumor. But if you're trying to pick a precision therapy, you need to know which is the mutation which is driving that particular tumor. And that can be different from person to person. So even though you might be diagnosed with, say, glioblastoma, the particular driver mutation could be different from one glioblastoma to another glioblastoma. And so we have a machine learning algorithm here, which is able to take all the mutations of, say, glioblastomas or melanomas. And for a particular patient, it will tell you that most likely this and this among the 25 to 30 mutations are the driver mutations. And then based on that, you can pick the therapy. So right now, it's being trialed on melanoma, where, say, the first-line therapy fails, you come back, you relook at the melanoma. Now there are even more mutations in the tumor, and you don't know which mutation to target or which mutation is driving it. And the algorithm actually picks that up and tells you this is most likely the causal driver mutation. And so then you pick your therapy based on that. So essentially, we are going to basically need machine learning to subphenotype as well as to sort of subgenotype. And more and more, we're going to sort of need this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Shivika, you talked about dentistry and a lot of people not going to dentists regularly. What strategies have you employed to make diagnostic visibility in the dental care more accessible across the country? And how do you think more people can take care of their oral health in terms of accessibility as well as awareness?
Right. So, see, the first problem in our industry in dentistry is the lack of access of these devices. So, like you have CT in medical, we have something called CBCT, which has utilization in dentistry and even in ENT, like your airway analysis or sleep studies, etc. So the first is actually having that machine where we can take a scan. A lot of parts of the country where you don't have the hardware. It is very limited that just a software that's complementing can do over there, right? So let's say if I don't take an X-ray, I cannot see what is supposed to be there in the X-ray. It's just as simple as that. So that's why our first solution was to actually branch out into locations and set up these centers in collaboration. Like ours is a CapEx light model. That means we don't invest in the machines ourselves, but we collaborate with people who have invested in these machines to drive dentists to diagnose more number of patients, to build awareness on diagnostics. So first was setting up of these centers. And the second thing that we're doing right now is that everything is very manual in the industry, even in medical. I think now, yes, if you go to a hospital, you get a digital prescription, etc. And then you have a record in the other branch of that hospital. But let's say you go to an independent dentist, everything is manual, there's no link system. ABA or ABDM is also going to take time. So we have created this digital platform, which is like, I can say, the Swiggy of dentistry in some way for a dentist, where a dentist can book a diagnostic scan for their patient or direct them to the closest diagnostic center. And not just book a scan, but track when their patient reached. The moment the image is captured using a PACS system and the tech stack that we've built around that, it will be visible to the doctor immediately, to the dentist. What would typically take them 24 hours before they could even see a scan, now would happen instantaneously. Within 20 seconds, they have the image with them. So, kind of making it easier, digitizing the workflow, solving the access problem, and at the same time, creating a digital platform where they can have visibility on what their options are. This is the approach that we have taken. Alongside adding AI to build efficiencies and to reduce stat times across different parts of the workflow and even diagnosis to some extent. And I believe that, like our startup, there are various other startups who are also going to the, ground root, taking photos of people's teeth, as I said, building AI on that. So that's definitely bringing awareness. And I think a lot of the awareness is also coming from companies like Tutsi or these large aligner companies who are talking about your smile, your oral health in media. Somewhere that's having a very positive impact on the industry, not necessarily through what they are executing, but through the awareness that is coming about because of that kind of marketing. And we in fact work with all these large startups, Sloan, Tutsi, etc. We diagnose for them. So for me, I see that, the more we have people, even medical professionals and dentists kind of coming together to talk about holistic health, the more it's an opportunity for someone like us to come in and ensure we enable the doctors to do their job to the best possible capacity. So that's what we're kind of working on.
Right, thank you. So it's very clear that if we really want to make and get our AI models into clinical practice, first thing which we need to have is a robust evidence that it works. We need to know in which cases it works, in which cases it does not, so that we can take an informed decision as to for which patients we can use a particular AI model and not use it generalized for each and every patient. We heard from Dr. Sham how we are gradually moving towards personalized medicine and how AI can help in achieving that for us as well as our patients. Dr. Subhadra mentioned that we need to have clear protocols, and that comes from the think tank of the country and the policymakers. In that aspect, I personally know that ICMR is trying to bring in new policies which are more robust, which will help us get involved with AI research in a little bit more easier way than it currently is. They are trying to improve collaborations, which is key for doing any kind of research, not only in AI, but in any kind of health tech research. We need to have good collaborations between data scientists, engineers, and the medicine people. As well as finally, for utilizing all these AI tools which can help us improve the health of our patients, we need to have good awareness, and it should be very comfortable for the patient. Ultimately, we are moving towards an economy and a culture of convenience, where every patient who wants to come to a hospital, regardless government setup or a private setup, would want to have a little bit more convenience, so that it also increases the compliance of the patient as well as improve the overall experience of the patient in the healthcare setup. Due to shortage of time, we will not have a third round, but I would want to open it up for the questions which were pending. And anyone?
Hello everyone, I'm Kailash. I'm doing a resident in general medicine here. Hello Subhra, it's been a long time.
Long time.
Yes. So my question was, why are we focusing? Like I was sitting and I was listening, and I keep reading articles on AI. I don't know. It's why like what I feel is there's too much focus on diagnostics. Like I'm the typical end user here. I'm a general medicine resident. I've become a physician. I think I would like more, for the AI to go in the direction of helping me rather than taking over the diagnostics, because I like doing the diagnostics. I don't want someone else to do it for me. And that's half the reason I'm in the field. And if you ask the machine to diagnose, you take away the fun of what's there in it. Then what I would like the AI to do for me is help my life, help me in making my life easier. Like a patient comes, apart from seeing the patient making clinical diagnosis, there's so much else. As the son mentioned, there's so much clerical work involved. Apart from the clerical work, there's so much cut work is also there. I'm pretty sure everyone has gone through it. My interns, I don't know if they're here. They do the maximum of the cut work, followed by my juniors, and even I have to do it. Like I don't know if we can use AI to reduce that kind of work. Well, let's say a patient comes, we enter all the details, we make our clinical assessment. Then maybe AI can tell us what all they can make worklist for us. They can make worklist for the investigation which we have to send. Maybe can talk to the radiology on our behalf, because there's so much time involved in sending the request for some CT scan. Or it can make our discharge summaries easier. Like you are writing reports, like we have the AI of its own writes reports. So maybe if we make, I don't know what is the, maybe panelists can educate me in this year. Like, is there emphasis being placed in this direction in making life of a physician better, so that we can focus more on patient care, we can focus more on the softer areas like patient to patient, like communication with the patient. That's not AI is not going to do it for us. And most of the time we skip that part because we don't have time. We spend the time in doing this cut work. So if I don't know, I read it somewhere that when AI was thought of being like when it was being invented, it was thought that it will take care of the cut and we will so that we'll be able to do poetry and music. But now AI is doing the poetry and music and we are doing the cut. So something similar is happening here also. Please let me know what you think and where direction. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I really love the way you convey your pain, right? So that's what AI is supposed to do, make people do their job they want to do rather than do all these redundant things. But sometimes use cases come in different ways for companies to build products and models. But having said that, I will give another example. There is a company called Chayos which sells tea. So you have to just go there and stand in front of that counter where you order the tea. If you are registered, you just see your face. Like airport, I went. I just stood there. It took my face and then, sir, you have ordered ginger chai the highest. Do you want to repeat that? I said yes. Then it says you order mostly for full tooth and sugar. Do you want to do the same? I said yes. Then he got it done. Imagine like a chai shop is really removed everything which is. But if you go to hospital again, file burrow, farm burrow, right? Same problem continues. So there are a lot of things which can be automated. And for me, a hospital group came and asked us, can you use AI and then do what you can do? I said, what if we make discharge summary come on its own without having to run around it? Because I have run hospitals and I know that every day discharge summary is a drama. And because of that, all the other dramas also happen. Because people who want to go out won't go out, people who have to come in won't come in. So we are working with two hospitals in Bangalore, the Greenfield hospitals, where I have promised them that we'll automate your discharge summary. If that happens, virtually all the processes are taken care, right? So that's what we are trying to do. And I work with a hospital in Tokyo where they have done this because in Tokyo it was a necessity because there are no people there. So all are either very old or very few people. So that process we are trying to bring in. But I don't know all the hospitals if it is possible because of the processes itself, because everything has to be automated, and for that you need to have all the manual processes, other different legacy softwares, all that to be really connected to this. If things have to go to the radiologist directly, then your EMR system, all that. So it's not just AI which can help it, the whole IT process in the hospital itself. So that's going to be super different. But as an individual level, we can do a lot of work with generative AI, where as soon as the patient comes, why can't it tell like what is the all five things you need to look at it and then automate and give whether you want to agree or like edit it. So these things are coming. A lot of work is happening because this whole panel was about diagnostics. We were talking more about it. Otherwise, there's a major problem which AI is trying to solve for doctors. And we know that doctors are the most expensive and scarce resources in the world. So if we can make them more effective using AI, then it's a great thing, I know, for the world to be doing, right? Yeah.
Just addressing this question, have you used any tech personally? Have you used any AI solution? So have you used any workflow automation or AI solution so far?
Thanks for asking that question. I tried using ChatGPT.
No, in the medical space, like anything for diagnosis of a workflow automation. Have you tried any of the products or like a PACS?
Like I remember, like it was some 3 years back. I was sorry, 6 years back. I was an intern. There was a website where it says that you enter the symptom, they'll show you a bunch of differences. But that was not great. Like that was a very basic. 6 years back, I think.
Right.
But now I have not used diagnostics. I have not used. Whereas like I bought recently this Chat GPT 4.0 and it has some specialized models for helping you make PPTs and all. As I was saying, that was one positive experience where I was okay. Can you give me a template for like I have to present on the inborn error of metabolism.
Hmm.
So can you just give me a template on how I should go about it? Like what are the subsections? What are the further details I should cover? Not very detailed, like a bit of everything. So it did a nice job. It did a very bad job of making the PPT because it was very general. It was like a 12 standard book, but it did a very good job of telling me how to structure the PPT.
Hmm.
So that one thing I got from it. Second, I was looking for a similar app which can tell me when a patient comes to me, when the patient is admitted, like I don't know, when like in a week and then admission day, I post that I have some 15 to 16 patients. All of them, like most of them have different diagnoses, different issues. I would like, if an app can tell me, let's say if I enter the diagnosis, let's say my patient has an infective endocarditis. So if an app can tell me what are the most recent guidelines of infective endocarditis, that would be really helpful.
Right.
But I don't know. I tried to ChatGPT, it does not do,
No,
it
no.
does a very bad job.
ChatGPT is not built for this. See, I think this is a very important point to note. And most of you sitting here are going to assume what AI is without having used it in medical. It's but natural. It was the same with me before because I'm not on the tech side. I'm clinical and then business. So look, every product that's coming out in the market, and I'm the CDO of Menencia.ai, which is also in this space, building packs AI. Everything, the first step is workflow automation. Like you said, if you have, like it's like a management system for your work, right? The AI is involved in that only. So what I would suggest to you is to maybe try once, because when you guys try at this level, like there, even if you Google or if you can reach out to me after this, etc. So we can show you what technology can do. And definitely your feedback is welcome. So like you said, right? So your full database of patients, what are the kind of diseases they are facing, what is the stats on that, basis age, basis gender, and if there's a particular patient that's having disease X, what, not just the differential diagnosis, but what are the required tests, what are the most recent research papers that are coming out on that, or maybe a kind of like a blog or collaborative discussion between global experts. So this is where even at Menencia, this is where we see the direction of automation happening. And never ever, I think, will diagnosis be taken away from a doctor. Don't, I mean, remove that thought from your head. What the technology has to do is it has to say that, look, here is where you need to look, maybe. Because by radiology and by radiology is a very big space, and it is firstly because it's pretty common in terms of your chest x-rays, etc. Second is it all depends on your visual perception, right? So the way you see an X-ray and the way I see an X-ray may be very, very different. So the kind of standardization that's required for that at scale, and everyone doesn't have the same skills. In tier 2, tier 3, you're not gonna have a doctor, sitting there, because once you start earning well, once you start, doing well, you also want to migrate and, sit in the best setup and best hospitals, etc. So over there, when the X-rays are happening, it's very important to understand that, this part of AI and this diagnosis part is going to be applicable where people are not having access to people like you or like us, right? Immediately. And you're not ever going to go and sit in a village for the rest of your whole life. You will keep growing. So that's where this comes, and definitely workflow automation is of prime importance. Try the products on the market, because when you guys try it, then is only when the products can improve. Otherwise, it's just tech and it's just in the company's head, right? So give it a shot and try it.
Yeah, so I can give you a couple of examples from the US. So one of the biggest problems that the US is facing is that there's a fair amount of burnout among physicians. It's by some counts, it's 50% of the physicians show symptoms of burnout. And the commonest cause of burnout is interacting with technology, especially the electronic health record system. And the two pain points are putting data in and taking data out of these systems. So putting data in, there's a study which came out about a few years ago. A primary care physician might spend up to 5 hours just putting data into the electronic health record system. And there are also studies which show that users of this electronic health record systems miss stuff because it's so difficult to get data out of these things. So here in Pittsburgh, there's a startup which has got a solution for data capture. So it's ambient listening. The idea is that you have the system which listens to the doctor-patient conversation, converts it into text, and then the text is fed into a large language model, which formats it into to a clinic note. And it's being deployed, it's being tested out, it's been deployed for a few months now, and a lot of physicians just love it because you're going from typing stuff in to basically something which is 80% accurate, which is already out there as text. The second issue, which is the retrieval problem. So I'm work with a company in the Bay Area. I'm one of the co-founders of this. And the idea there is essentially use generative AI, large language models, to directly ask the electronic health record system the pointed questions that a clinician wants. So typically when a patient comes to a clinic's office, now they might have really pointed questions like, why was this medication stopped, right? Now they can spend half an hour looking into the EHR system trying to figure it out. Or they basically turn around and ask the patient, do you know why it stopped? Which makes no sense, right? We've got all this data apparently sitting in these great systems. And so the idea now is to layer AI on top of it and ask it to go dig into the system, bring the answer. But I think this is a great question because really the administrative overhead and the documentation burden of practicing medicine, especially in a country like the US, is so heavy that physicians are retiring or physicians are just getting out of doing patient care. And so that's where we're going to see sort of the immediate advances of AI being applied. And health systems will pick this up and pay for these products immediately over sort of this more futuristic, better diagnosis and more precision diagnosis.
Right.
Thank you.
I think we'll take the next questions off the stage because the next event is going to start and the faculty is waiting. I think it was a great session, a very interactive session. Thanks to all you guys, everyone in the audience. Great questions. And I thank all the panelists for taking time out from their busy schedule to come from different parts of the country and for sharing your insights. Because these are few of the people who have actually built AI in the country, brought in knowledge from outside, from the United States, and they have shared their experience with us and hopefully have motivated a couple of you to get interested in AI, to start delving into it, creating your own models. There will be a lot of questions we can discuss off the stage. I will be happy to take questions and few of us will be here. One of our panelists has a flight also to catch. So we will take leave from here, but any questions which you have, feel free to ask us off the stage. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for an insightful and informative discussion, sirs and ma'ams. We all have learned immensely from this session. Please accept these tokens of appreciation and gratitude for the time and effort you have spent here educating us today.
feel free to catch us out at the stage for any questions which you had.